secretly violates it. Marriage is built on trust, and once that trust is broken, it takes so much more to rebuild it than to maintain it. I want you to reflect on this.
Wow. Wow, 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 and wow again. I mean, he just brought it home, didn't he? I like how he said that there are different kinds of infidelities. There are emotional affairs, there are financial affairs that happen and take place way outside of the sexual nature. I would even dare say that there are conversational ones that lead to the emotional ones that happen. And it's the attempt to try to fulfill a legitimate need in an illegitimate way. And so we're talking tonight about why some couples don't make it. There's one answer right there. People are trying to get a legitimate need that they have fulfilled in an illegitimate way outside of God's way, his will and his word. I mean, I don't know what else I can even say about that. Go ahead. If you want to jump in on that one, go ahead. Just go ahead.
Well, the reality is we all have needs. We all have needs. And the fallacy that we run into is that we think that those needs can be met outside of what we are in. It's almost that old cliche, the grass is greener on the other side. And we think, well, if I go outside, I'm going to find something that's going to fulfill me or satisfy. I can get that pop soda, or that I can get that quick fix that's going to satisfy the longing that I have and that I need to feel, not realizing that it's going to take work. Even if you dissolve what you're in today, it's going to take an amount of work to rebuild something brand new. When you can steal away for a little bit and get that, they say affairs are exciting because it causes the adrenaline to rush and these chemicals to be released in your brain. You have this, you have this high when you're stealing or when you're cheating and when you're doing things behind your partner's back. There's this high, and we think that high is going to last throughout this new relationship. But the reality is, it's going to take just as much work to build a new relationship as it would have taken to be in the one that you're in. So why not take all that energy and all that excitement and all that spending money and spending time and invest it into the relationship that you're in? Because the devil has made us think that it's better if you just step out. It's better if you find someone else, and that could be further away from the truth.
Absolutely. Which is to say, tonight we're talking about answering the question we want to answer: why some couples don't make it. And so this first one is about the emotional affairs, the sexual affairs, the financial affairs, the attempt to try to get a need met that is a real need outside of the provision that has been made for you in terms of your relationship. But let's get right on into it on tonight. Here we go. Some reasons why couples don't make it: health and wholeness. It's important to be healed, healthy, and whole within yourself before entering into relationships. Because if you don't take time to do that, you bring the baggage of your previous experience. A lot of times people will end one thing, thinking that everything is going to be peachy keen and everything is going to be lovely, and I found the one and all of this kind of stuff. Now, I do believe in that to some degree, in terms of there's a fashion formed and made person for you. But what marriage does and what relationships do is it forces you to become the one, because the work has got to be done on you to become reflective of him who is the one, so that you can be the one to the other person. And I think a lot of times people miss the focus on that, of how important it is to be healthy and whole within yourself as an individual before moving on, because what's in you is going to come out. Because that other person's got a whole set of issues and a whole set of traumas and a whole set of triggers and a whole set of things that you're going to have to work on adjusting yourself to kind of get yourself in a place where you're still in this for the long haul. What I can say is, I say it like this when it comes to people that are taking new jobs or moving to new states: you take you with you everywhere you go. I can preach right there for about 45 minutes. You take you with you everywhere you go. So the issue is not so much the other person. Sometimes the issue is you and you working on you so that you can be the best you that you can be in terms of becoming the one for the other person. Go ahead. Jump in on some of that.
I was just listening. We got some.
I don't want to take all the time. Go ahead.
Good evening, Janice Gray. We see you. I think we went way back to English, didn't we? Sheila Wilkerson, we sure miss seeing you, says Minister Sunita Price. She said that greener grass will get you in trouble every time. Yes.
Yes, it will.
That greener grass. But yes, you're absolutely. I'm signing on to what you're saying tonight, Bishop. Just signing on to
it. Now that you want somebody to tell you the truth, Sheila Wilkerson will tell you the truth. She'll tell it to you right to your face like a TI is. That's true. Absolutely. So yeah, we're having this conversation tonight about why is it that some couples don't make it, and so we've got to understand that the tendering times of relationships are already stressful. So many couples can't survive the routines and the rigors of everyday life. And our adversary, he doesn't want us together anyway, because our unity reflects the character and the nature of God. So that health and wholeness are so important. And here's something I didn't say yet. There are so many hidden areas of the heart that left unchecked in our relationships. There are so many hidden areas of the heart that go unchecked in the relationships that we have. We don't really take time to get down up underneath the surface sometimes. A lot of times we are attracted by people's exterior or their gift mix or how they look, or even watch this one, how somebody else can make you look when they are with you. We go into image and profile concepts a lot without getting down into the core of who people are. And I know I say this a lot of times to singles. I'm going to say it again on tonight. You've got to take time to get to know who people are. 4 seasons in every year, summer, winter, spring, fall, different things come on different people at different times. And so you got to take time to get a chance to know who they are before engaging with them in relationships for the long term, which is why the dating process is so important. And I just got to slip this in, babe. I'll let you just get on some of this. It is tough and it is hard to maintain the standards of the monogamous celibacy when dating, particularly with older people. Okay. However, sexuality and the sexual connection can many times cloud your judgment. Absolutely. Which is why it is so important for you to do everything you can to practice the abstinence until you say I do, so you don't end up in a place where now you don't. That's my best way of saying that one right there. Tonight we answer the questions why some couples don't make it, health and wholeness. Here's the second one: humility. I know you got a lot to say about this one.
Can I interject for just one time? When you flashed that question on the screen about why some couples don't make it, I thought about how is it that we started in the first place? Sometimes we don't start right. And other times, everything seems perfect and it's like this Big Bang Theory happened. It's like, oh, we just found each other. It's great. But sometimes some things just don't start right. Yeah. And when it doesn't start right, then you have to work through those elements that weren't right in it. And then it's almost like a process of discovery of, why did we really come together? And when there's confusion in the beginning and there's confusion all throughout it, just sealing it off by saying, well, we know we love each other, we'll just get married. But if you don't clear up that confusion in the beginning, it's only going to be magnified when you try to make it, legit, so to speak. So sometimes we have to ask the question, how do we really get started? Did we get started because, God brought us together, or because we had common interests and things that were, drawing us together? What caused us to really come together? And then when we start examining the reasons why we came together, was it a selfish motivation that brought us together? Did we see something that person said, I really want that person because they're going to make me look good? Or did you come together with that person because you saw God in them and something about their heart, something about their character spoke to the person of who you were and said, you know what, that person sharpens me. That person makes me want to be a better me. That's that's the cry that ought to come out of you when you connect with that other person. This person makes me want to be a better me for them and for others. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So tonight, again, we're talking about why some couples don't make it, health and wholeness, number one. Number two, this area of humility. The only way to stay married is to walk in a level of humility and meekness. All too often, so many couples forget about the us and they interject the I, and it takes a toll on the we. And so relationships require a level of submission to the Holy Spirit. It's the reason why God gave you 2 ears, 1 mouth, 2 nostrils on each nose. Discernment is what that represents, 1 mouth. We do a whole lot more talking than we do listening, discerning, and hearing what's behind some of the triggers and issues with our spouses. And if we don't take time to really, really allow the Holy Spirit to be at work, we'll constantly be at a moment where we're badgering at each other. We're trying to get some need fulfilled and met. And not that your needs should not be met, but we forget that this posture is about one of service. How is it that God can use you to be a blessing to your spouse? And if each person is serving the other person, nobody should go with a need being unmet. If the intentional focus is on how best can I serve and lift up the needs of my spouse and hold them in high regard so that they don't go wanting. But a lot of times, especially when it comes into difficulties and disagreements, we have a focus on the I rather than on the we. Go ahead.
You know, sometimes we don't know what's in us until that right button is pushed. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes some things don't actually manifest until you're in that hot spot with your
Yeah.
spouse or with your significant other, and
Yeah.
something gets rubbed and uncovers what was hidden. Because, you know, humans have a way of stuffing things down, whether it's a bad emotion or a bad experience. We have a way of hiding things and masking things, and it
We
may
try to
not
cover
be right. It may not get uncovered until it gets touched, and we realize there's vulnerability there.
it.
We
Yeah.
have let our guard down, and that vulnerability has been touched, and now we respond or we react, and something comes out. But it was there all along. It just hadn't been touched yet. And so
Yeah.
some of these things really don't come out until you're in that intense moment with your significant other,
Yeah.
and you realize that's an area in me that I need to submit to God. That's an area
Yeah.
in me that I need to work through a little bit more. Now, the beauty is when you're with somebody who wants to honor you, because a lot of what's missing and a lot of what causes relationships to dissipate is that lack of honor, that lack
Yes.
of realizing. In the beginning, we really admired the person. In the beginning, we really said, "Oh wow, I really like what God is doing in their life. I really just I love their principles. I love their character. We're so excited, you know." I love that story that Tony I want to say Tony Robbins, the motivator, but he talks about how in the beginning when you get into a relationship and the person says, "Hey, can you do this for me?" and you skip along and say, "Yes, I'll take out the trash. I'll do that," and they do it happily. But do that about 5 times or 5 years down the road, and the person's like, "Why I gotta do it? Why can't you do it yourself?" You know, that lack of honor starts to
Yeah.
settle in. You start taking things for granted. But if you
Yeah.
treat people the way you treated them when you first met them, you'll see a whole different relationship. But
Yeah.
often in our relationships, that's not what happens. We easily start taking each other for granted. Oh, they'll
Mhm.
be there. Oh, yeah. And we don't give them a kiss when we leave. We don't say goodbye.
Mhm.
We don't say hello. We don't greet them. We don't cheer them.
Mhm.
We start to take things for granted. And when you start to take things for granted, there's always an enemy that's watching. There's always someone else watching, waiting for the opportunity to sneak on in.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great friend of mine, marriage coach here, James Easley Jr. says there has to be a level of commitment to the marriage.
Yes, that's good.
Inflexibility ruins many marriages.
Yeah, sometimes
Inflexibility,
we're so
an
trapped in these
unwillingness.
roles. You gotta do. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
There's an unwillingness to change. Let me just say something about that. You have to do what works for your marriage. Marriages are not cookie cutters. So you have to do
That's
what works well for yours. Didn't I tell you that Sheila Wilkerson will tell you the truth? And then Janice Gates is another one that will tell you the truth. There's my man. I call him 100 grand. That is Robert Van saying good
Yes.
evening to
Hey.
us on tonight. Absolutely. Robert Van. I love that. Love that guy. Let's get into some of this, honey, to be able to land this plane tonight. Just for the sake of us not being up here all night, because we can do this all night long. But tonight we're having this conversation about why is it that some couples don't make it. I just feel I'll do it in just a second. Health and wholeness, number one. Humility, number two. And let me just say this for those who may be tuning in tonight, because I just feel an impression of the Spirit that some people, they came from a breakup. They're just coming through a breakup. They're in a moment now where they're newly and freshly divorced. This is a night where we're having a conversation about skills and equipping that can help you for your next, maybe not necessarily right now, but to help you have an understanding about what can help you the next go around, if there is a next go around for you. So this is not a night where this is about judgment for you. Spend the time in focusing on getting healthy and whole and recovering, so that you are, like I said, whole within yourself before you start taking steps to the next relationship. Use this time as a time to go vertical, go upward in an alignment between you and God before you start trying to get horizontal. And so I want to encourage someone tonight. I just feel like somebody that's going to either watch the replay or was checking this out tonight, they haven't commented yet. They just came through a bad experience and things have happened for them the way that they've happened for them, which leads me to say sometimes, like we said before, as we started tonight, you asked me the question, why do we say sometimes necessary endings? And some of the necessary endings are necessary because you were unequally yoked. There are too many couples who don't share the same, look at these V's here, the same view, the same values, and the same vigor for how to solve the issues of relationships. It ties in well with what James Easley had to say in terms of people are inflexible in the dynamics of their relationships with each other. But flexibility is not the same in terms of values. Let me give an example of what being flexible looks like. Someone likes to go to bed. Let's use me and you. You sleepy right now. You're about ready to clock out already right now.
Well, when you said we can do this all night, I was like, oh, maybe you can. I can't do it all night.
Right. So the flexibility is my presence helps you go to sleep. So even though I stay up late, I come get in the bed beside you and put my headphones on. That's being flexible. Some people are inflexible with that. We're not talking about being inflexible on the areas of values. Values are where you've got to align yourself so that you can live together on the fact that how we solve an issue in a crisis is much more important, or solving an issue in a crisis is much more important than the way we solve it. And so I think a lot of times couples aren't necessarily flexible enough on the issues or the things that matter. We have to agree in terms of how we see the world. We have to agree that that scripture, the Bible, is our foundation. It is the end all, the be all of how we make decisions in terms of what we see as moral, what we see as immoral, what we view as spiritual, what we view as unspiritual, what we see in terms of the context of our home, in terms of it being a sanctuary with God at the center and God up above us. We have to agree about God's order for family and the importance of his presence in the lives of children. A lot of times we don't have those discussions. And so when we start to talk about being unequally yoked, there was one couple I was providing counsel for, and the man wanted to have children and the wife didn't want to have children. And so that can be a moment where there seems like it's inflexibility, but that ought to be a sign this is a no-go relationship. I know you and I, when we first came together with each other, and we were dating, and everybody used to say this crazy stuff to us all the time. I just see y'all with children, just little babies running around. And we were looking at each other like, no, you don't. We were in agreement. I ain't trying to have no more. Because I was determined. I ain't going to be 50 with a 2-year-old. I'm not going to do it. So making sure that you are able to get on the same page and be in agreement about your worldviews and your value system and the vigor of what it takes to how to solve relationships is so critically important. Go ahead and jump in on some of that.
And you know, and I have a lot of respect for the Gottman theories. And they point out, I think it's like 67% of marital conflicts are not actually resolved, but the couple, you know, rehashes the same arguments over and over in different forms. However, what they've learned to do is live together in a way where you can respect the other enough not to see them differently because they don't have your same same point of view. Now, I'm not talking about the biblical standards and things like that, but just different things, you know. And then that whole principle the how-tos. Yes. And then even about being unequally yoked, we talked about how in an agricultural community that the Bible times kind of evolved out of, that agricultural system saw the unequal yoke as a mule and an ox. The
Right.
ox is a beast of burden, and they're carrying the weight. But if you put a mule, we know the mule to be stubborn. A mule's not going to want to go at the drop of a hat. The ox will keep on treading forward and plowing that ground, and the mule is holding you back because it's stubborn and doesn't want to go when the ox wants to go. And so you got one trying to move forward.
I wonder how that applies to our relationship, because somebody wants trying to get married.
Focus. I need you to focus, okay?
Because I was the beast of burden carrying this bad boy. I was carrying it. Come on, tell it. Jump in the comment section, Anita. Jump in the comment section. You know.
Focus here, focus. But yeah, that whole reality is when you have one pushing for the marriage to be better, but the other one wanting to stay in the past, you're going to have a problem. Or one saying, you know, we need to handle this way, and the other says, I refuse to hear you. I refuse to change. I refuse. That's an unequal yoke. It's not going to change if they're not willing to change unless God steps in and changes their heart, because there has to be a heart change. So when we start thinking about be not unequally yoked, start to evaluate, look at what's going on in the relationship before you say I do. What's actually going on? Sometimes, you know, I've seen the culture evolving. We're both in our 50s now. And we've seen relationships change and go through a different stages. And there's this thing where a man has to do A, B, C, and D. A man has to provide all of this, and the man has to do all of this, and the woman can't have a job, and they have to. I mean, so the roles have changed and evolved. In the Bible, Jesus cooked fish for the disciples. Okay, but we think that, you know, there's these roles that are solid and in stone and can't change. I love what the viewer was saying about that inflexibility, but to be able to see each other working together as one. The goal is not that you're confined to roles. The goal is, can we be one? When Adam saw Eve, he said, now this is flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone. This is now flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone. Now, Adam was created out of the dust of the ground. And funny enough, the dust has minerals in it. It has zinc, it has iron, it has copper. It has all these different things. But Eve is taken out of him. She's made out of his bone marrow because God took a rib. So that bone marrow, that bone is where reproduction of blood cells happens. And so she wasn't necessarily created out of the ground. God fashioned and formed her by something that was already living. Not that the dust didn't have living properties in it. It did. But, you know, the two were formed. They were made differently. They have different functions. They can do a whole lot of different things. But sometimes we get so locked in that this person can only do this and that can only do this, and we miss it. We just miss it. We major on minors. And the goal really is to be one. You know, the Lord make us one, even as you and I are one, but to be one, because when we're not going towards being one, when one is standing still and the other one is moving, you're not moving towards oneness. The goal is oneness, and what the goal is to walk together. How shall two walk together except to be agreed?
Sometimes that agreement is an overlapping, where there's an overlapping of roles, where like there are moments where
a threefold cord. You're trying to say that.
The threefold cord is absolutely necessary. Where there's an overlapping, where whatever is needed at the time to ensure that the weaving together of that threefold cord is not easily broken. That is what you necessarily do. Let me say this to men sometimes, because we are head of households and that sort of kind of thing. We are head of households of that thing. There are moments where our authority cannot necessarily be exerted in an audible, dictatorial kind of way, but it rather has to be a quiet strength of steadiness. And so this quiet strength of steadiness, there's some things that you don't have to speak to all the time, but you have to weather the storm through until everybody kind of comes around and starts to seeing from the perspective or the end results of maybe not necessarily following in the pattern or pathway that you've kind of laid out. And I think a lot of times that's where the patience work happens on you as the spiritual leader of the home, which is absolutely necessary. We're foundational. I could preach a whole series on that right there, of learning how to stay still, stay in place, and let God bring things right on back around. Let me jump into the comment section. But there we go. Tanita, there we
We
go.
need Tanita's comment on there. Leave my first lady alone. That's the comment we need
Oh
right there.
Lord, I forgot. I forgot. She's part of the First Lady's Auxiliary Committee. I forgot about that. There is Fatia. Whoop, time got away from me, but yes. Begin again University. She was able to make it in on tonight. You know, we're talking about how to be equally yoked so that we aren't unequally yoked. I think I can do one more better there and show them better than I can tell them, and we'll land the plane with this one tonight. Take a look at this.
Care if the wrong people get together. That's an amazing thing for his mission. All right. But when true love occurs, he will do everything in his power to derail this. I can attest. Because that is going to be a problem if those two people come together. And that's why when there's true love, a lot of times the true love situations have the hardest time getting together.
True love situations oftentimes have the hardest times of getting together because of that walk of humility. And Satan will do everything he can to keep the two on opposing spectrums, because if he knows, I'm trying my best not to preach, but if any two of you agree as touching, nothing shall be denied you. What's your favorite one? One can chase 1,000.
Yes.
But look at the
10,000.
Two can chase 10,000. And so I got so much more I could say on tonight, but I'm going to land the plane with this. There is a reality that some couples don't make it, and it has more to do with our lack of humility. It has more to do with us being sometimes unequally yoked and with the wrong person, and it has a whole lot to do, this is a big one, with us not being in a place where we are in healthy and we are whole inside of the context and confines of our relationships one to another. Let me slip this in here. With your girl here, the strength that we as women should see in the steadiness of the man. My Lord, we are all over the place in seeing the man remain calm in the storm. Bless God. The devil never wants to see true kingdom marriages be trying to throw in all the monkey bridges. Absolutely right. He tries to throw them all in. Honey, there's something.
He does. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say something big is happening this weekend. In your closing comments, why don't you mention that of what's taking place Friday, Saturday, and Sunday?
Okay, yes, I am excited about the Weekend to Remember, because that is coming up this weekend. And my any last words I would say is, 1, remember why you came together. 2, remember to honor each other. And there are legitimate needs that both the husband and the wife needs, the man and the woman needs. The husband needs that respect. He needs it. He needs that admiration. He needs words of affirmation. Remember those things and ask you to plan for the weekend. If you haven't already signed up for the Weekend to Remember that's being held in Virginia Beach, there is still time. Is there not still time? I believe there's still time for Weekend to Remember.
Time, yeah.
You got a flyer on the show?
I do not have the flyer up, but I can tell you that you can go to Family Life, click on weekendtoremember.com. Website will pop right on up. I know that James Easley, if he's still on, drop that down in the comments section for those who catch this on the replay. You start on Friday at 5. Registration opens at 3. All day Saturday, all day Sunday. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a powerful time.
Yes.
Make sure that you and your significant other get jumped in on it. We'll see you again soon. Y'all take care.
We love you. God bless you. Bye-bye.